Hi, I'm Chantel Rodriguez from Millcreek Township.
And I'm Jessica Stutzman. Welcome to the Millcreek Government Channel.
Today, we're joined by Greg Hall, CEO of Second Harvest Food Bank, to discuss how communication plays a role in fighting food insecurity and how the community can help. Greg, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
We're so happy to have you here. And can you give us a quick overview of the Second Harvest Food Bank and what you do, the people that you serve, and how you get involved in that?
Yeah, for sure. So I think people would be surprised to find out we actually serve, I would say, all of Northwest PA. We serve 11 counties. I know when I talk to some folks in the community, they think it's just Erie, but we actually reach a huge portion of Pennsylvania in general. And so kind of the way you can think about how it works is I like to say we're actually more in the warehouse and logistics business. So we partner with, we have about 384 faith-based pantries, soup kitchens. Locally you can think of folks like Emmaus, the Erie City Mission. We work with them. They basically, for lack of a better description, will place orders with us almost through like an Amazon-style system of the types of foods they would like to get, and we prepare those orders, and then we send out our trucks to each of these partners, and then they distribute the food down to our neighbors in need.
Mm-hmm. And how long has the food bank been operating in Erie and the surrounding region?
Yeah, so the original food bank was founded in 1982 as the Erie Food Bank in the Curtsey Warehouse. We are, the location we're at currently on Grimm I think we built it out in 2008, and it is a 60,000 square foot warehouse.
Wow. And how many employees do you have?
Currently, right now, we have 42 employees.
Okay.
And so we employ everyone from, warehouse workers to truck drivers, to media, marketing folks, agency relations folks who work closely with those partner pantries and organizations that I mentioned. So it is a large operation.
Mm-hmm. And we mentioned at the beginning that you just started in February. What drew you to this organization and with respect to its mission and the work you do to service such a large area?
Yeah, for sure. So for me personally, I have an extensive background both in for-profit and nonprofit experience in the region. But I've found over the last 10, 15 years that mission-based work is really what drives me. I remember working in for-profit and being like, wow, we made another quarter, and it just you start to question, like, what am I doing with my life? How do I make an impact as a human? And so I was, I've been driven to mission-based work. And so this opportunity, arose. And to me, food is the most fundamental mission, right? Getting food to our neighbors in need really is I would say the most fundamental mission. So I was attracted to that opportunity to, again, also have an impact on a region the size of all of Northwestern PA. It really was an opportunity for me to kind of get in there, work my vision, and see how we could reach and serve those folks.
Mm-hmm. And with how big the region is, what is the scope of need that you're actually seeing in the local community?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in Northwest PA, we see how 1 in 7 individuals struggle with food insecurity, 1 in 5 children. And what food insecurity means is these are folks who don't know where their next meal is coming from. And so that's what we see in the region. I would say over the last 2 years, we have seen that need increase. We've seen close to 40% increase in the number of individuals and households that we're serving. So we've seen not only the need of the region, but that need increasing over the last several years.
Mm-hmm. The Second Harvest Food Bank, you have, a lot of name recognition in the community, but our viewers may not know all of the programs or services that you offer. Do you want to touch on some of those?
Yeah, absolutely. And to your first point, that is one thing that, I was amazed by and still to this day excites me is that community support. So not only do we have that name recognition, but we truly have great community support. And so to your second question point about the programming, I think folks would be surprised to find out the extensive amount of programming that we have. So I had mentioned our partner pantries, partner organizations, but we actually do a lot of different programming ourselves, actually some distributions ourselves. So one that we run is called the Produce Express. And so the goal of that is to get, food to neighbors in need where, there might not be a pantry operating. A traditional pantry maybe doesn't make sense. So we will set up, bring a truckload full of produce, trying to target about 200 families, maybe set up in a, maybe a school parking lot. We actually do these as well up at our warehouse location. We have other great programs. One that I like a lot is called the Military Share, where it's similar to a Produce Express, but we partner, with local American Legions or local VFWs. And the idea is to serve, our veterans that are struggling as well. Also families with active duty personnel as a way to help those folks as well. We also have school programming, our backpack programs in all 11 counties and all the schools there. We have school pantry programs. We really do have a plethora of programming. We have some SNAP outreach as well to help our neighbors sign up for SNAP. So there is, a plethora of different programs that we offer.
Mm-hmm. And with that, the local schools and churches, do you have other partnerships with the other nonprofits in the area, or do you guys like to piggyback off of each other's events or kind of do a collaboration of both?
Yeah, that's a great question. So definitely one vision that I have coming into this role is to see how we could do more collaboration as nonprofits, as service providers. We do some of it, like I mentioned, with partnering with, VFWs, American Legion. So we do have some of that sort of collaboration, but I really think there's more that we can do. So the way I think about it, I mentioned the nonprofit background. I both worked at Shriners Hospitals for Children. I worked at Sarah Reed Children's Center. I've served on lots of nonprofit boards like SafeNet. And what I've come to realize is that a lot of the folks that we serve are struggling with more than just food insecurity, right? It's access to mental behavioral health care, and maybe access to dental care for their children, housing insecurity, domestic violence issues, those sorts of things. So how can we as service providers, nonprofits come together better to collaborate, right? I think it's an unfair ask to say to a single parent, okay, you have to go here to get your food services. You have to go here for your housing services. You have to go here for domestic violence services and so on, right? So can we all come together and find a way that we can provide a collaborative space or collaborative programming? The schools, I know you asked about that one. We have started talking with the United Way. They're in the schools with their community school program. We're there for, backpacks and food pantries. Is there a way that we can more efficiently provide services? Are there gaps in services that we could come together and achieve more together? So that is a vision of mine, that we can work collaboratively, and, maybe food can kind of be that, central nexus point for that.
I love that idea, because especially with families who may not have any means of transportation, that might just be walking or taking the bus. I know growing up, that was my only form of transportation.
That's right.
So making it more accessible to them to just go to a one-stop shop in a way and be able to have some of those services, even if it's not the full scope of it, they could at least have someone there available to ask those questions or give them the services that they need on spot.
Absolutely. And, you brought up transportation. That is a huge thing that we're always thinking through. Many of our programs, like I mentioned, the Produce Express, a lot of that is trying to target that where we know it. Maybe it's hard for folks to get to this area, to get to this particular pantry, but can we meet folks where they're at? And so I would say we are now being a little more targeted in the way we're thinking about how we're getting food to folks, really thinking about that transportation piece. So whether it's looking at a programming model where we're trying to come to people, meet them where they're at. We're looking at, okay, if we're going to start a pantry or a distribution over here, where are the bus lines? Can we make it easy for folks to get there? We've talked to, and we continue to talk to, different types of delivery services, the Amazons of the world, the Ubers, the DoorDashes. Can we figure out how we can partner together to really tackle this transportation from a myriad of different standpoints? Because I don't think there's one solution.
Yeah.
This is how we'll figure it out, and then that'll solve all the transportation issues. But can we all work together and find, how we align programming to meet folks where they're at?
Yeah, and you're looking at all of the facets from different angles. So I love that opportunity to be able to, a family who may just want to help their family for that night, but also look into other programs that they could get involved with, so they're not wondering where that meal is going to be coming from, or where they're going to be able to schedule for a dental appointment or any healthcare services. So I think that's a wonderful idea.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned the family piece too. So a part of what we try to do, and I think it touches on transportation as well. We work to, set up programming, for what we would call like proxies, right? So maybe this neighbor in need, for whatever reason, cannot make this time for this particular distribution, but will work with maybe a family member who can act as a proxy. We see that a lot with the seniors that we serve, and those sorts of folks. So we try to be, as flexible as possible. Like I said, meet folks where they're at.
Wow, I think that's a great vision for the future, and you've come so far, since the inception of the Second Harvest Food Bank as a whole, and just talking about the evolution of where you've come and where you're going. How has the demand for your services changed in recent years, especially after following things like the pandemic or recent grocery inflation spikes, things like that?
Yeah, great question. We have definitely seen an increased demand for our services. Over the last 2 years, we've seen an increase of 43% of the individuals that we've served, an increase of 40% in households that we serve. I think if you're to ask me what are the two reasons behind that, or the reasons, I think there are two of them. One is definitely the inflation piece that you mentioned coming post-COVID. I think I saw a study somewhere that over the last 5 years, grocery prices have increased by 25%, right? And so when you think about especially where those price increases are, these are fresh, nutritious produce, milk, eggs, meats, vegetables, all those sorts of things have started to become a little out of reach for folks, right? So even if you have the same amount of money, it's just not going to go as far. So I think that's the first facet. We've seen, a giant increase in the price at the grocery stores. I think the second one is access, right? So we see both access as an issue in urban areas and rural areas. So urban, we see issues where the only place to get food is maybe a country fair or Speed Check or something like that. And so when you have high prices and no access, all of a sudden you see this increase in demand. And I mentioned the rural side. I think what we see on rural sides is, a big player comes into a space, maybe pushes out, local grocers, and then all of a sudden there's only one place folks in a rural area can get to for food and groceries. And again, it goes back to the transportation issue. When your local store was maybe just down the street or just down the road, and you're in a rural area, and now there's only one mega place to get groceries, it's difficult for folks to get there and get access to it. So I think those are the two factors right now that is driving this increase in demand that we're seeing.
Yeah, because then it ends up being a food desert, and you don't have access to a specific place, and you have to go 30, 45 minutes out of your way to just get groceries. It becomes a burden on the family. So I could see that also, being an issue as well.
Well, and it's, the pandemic, I was just thinking, was 5 years ago, 2020, it's now 2025. And so some of these, grocery hikes and grocery increases, now that we all have apps for our groceries, it's really easy to see. You can take your entire cart. There might have even been an online challenge at one point, but you can take your entire grocery cart from a year ago and hit, buy again, and you saw a year ago it was $100, and now that same grocery cart with the exact same stuff is, $150 or $180. And so you can literally see the difference.
Yeah, it's an actual visual
your
representation. Yes, right.
Right. So yeah, that makes it all the more challenging for everybody to have food security.
Yeah, and I think with the summer coming up, a lot of kids are going to lose out on the access of the free breakfast and also the lunches. So are there any special seasonal programs that, like the summer meals for kids or holiday food services that you guys?
Yeah, great question and a good point, right? I think it's both surprising and sad that a lot of times the only time children are getting access to food is at schools, right? So you mentioned the breakfast and the lunches. So with our backpack program in particular, the whole goal of that program is to get kids food to get them through weekends or holidays. So we partner with the schools to understand, okay, when is spring break? When is, the Christmas break? When is, XYZ break? So that those backpacks are a little more robust in those time frames. And then we target every, Friday and that weekend to get them through. The backpacks are great. We try to make sure that those are full of foods that kids want to eat, right? We could pack them with black beans and this and that, but we know they're not going to eat them. Right?
It's the mac and cheese boxes that my kids love.
Fruit cups, those sorts of things. So we're very also targeted as we build those backpacks out. You mentioned like summer and that sort of stuff. So we do continue to work with schools, community centers to, still try to get those backpacks out to kids through the summer. We also have our school pantry programs. You'll see those more in like the middle school, high school, where we try to give, I would say one thing that we do well and we're trying to even get better at is what I would call dignity of choice, where instead of saying these are the foods that you have to take, here are your options. So again, as kids get older, we want to give them the option to say, yes, I'll eat that, I'll eat that. These programs also work with their families, and so we run those through the summer as well. So it really is a multifaceted approach that we take towards, children and families, especially around school time and summertime.
Mm-hmm. And children, families, anybody in need, how can someone in need access food through your programs?
Yeah, great question. So there's a couple different ways. One is they can go to our website, nwpafoodbank.org. And from there, we have a pantry locator. So they can find one of our network pantries, one of our, network organizations that are close by. So they can go that way. We also have a food helpline that they can call. Again, that is listed on our website. And they can call and we will work with them, whether it's an emergency situation in which they need food now, or we can direct them to, their local, food pantry, soup kitchen, that sort of thing.
And are there any requirements, or is this just anyone that is having, tough times? They don't know where their next meal is coming from. They can go directly to you.
Yeah, certainly. So we have, like I said, the myriad of different programming. We have some that is state programming, some that is federal programming. So some of those programs have different requirements. There are like self-declaration forms of need, those sorts of things. But if a family is in an emergency or crisis situation, they absolutely can come and we will get them the food they need. So it is kind of it's a mix, is I guess the best way I could say that.
And then our show is very close, coming to a close here. But is there anything that our viewers, people or companies, anything they can do to volunteer or donate? Like, how can we assist you?
Sure, absolutely. So I like to tell folks there's 3 different ways that they can assist the food bank. One is a monetary donation. I would say that is if you wanted to support us, that is the absolute best way to do that. And the reason I say that is because we're so massive. I mentioned the 60,000 square foot warehouse. We can leverage that dollar more than you could at the grocery store. So if there is a food drive, which are fantastic, we encourage folks not to go out and buy food for the food drive, rather donate it to us because, for what you're buying a can of beans for, we can leverage that to buy, maybe a pallet of beans. We like to say for about $25 donation, we can feed an individual for 3 weeks. So monetary donation is definitely key. Second is a food drive. Absolutely there, many of us are blessed enough to have a pantry full of food, but sometimes we probably have some there that we're just never going to eat. So folks can host food drives for us. That's a fantastic way to get that food to your neighbors in need. And then thirdly, volunteering your time, volunteering at an event, volunteering. We have, weekly, daily volunteer opportunities as well, where you can pack some of those backpacks, other like our senior boxes. So those are really the 3 ways that folks can get involved and help out Second Harvest.
Mm-hmm. So are there any upcoming events that you have that you want to leave our viewers with?
Yeah, so we have a couple big ones coming up in around Thanksgiving, November. We have the Erie News Now drive, and then Erie Insurance does an excellent food drive for us as well. So that's a great way to help out your neighbors in need and, around the holidays.
And you also will be participating in Erie Gives Day, right?
Yes.
Okay.
You will definitely be participating in Erie Gives Day.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Well, I wanted to thank you so much for being here today, sharing this message and your mission with our viewers. And hopefully, again, our viewers, see the need after our discussion today and see the ways that they can get involved. So thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So thank you for watching our conversation with Second Harvest Food Bank. To support their mission or volunteer, visit nwpafoodbank.org. Take care, and we'll see you next time.